I think we're on. Hey, how are you? Okay, hey, welcome to the show today, folks. It's me, Chris, or you can call me Christopher, whatever you want. Hi, how's everybody doing today? I am having a really lovely day. And by that, I mean that there's all kinds of things going on, lots of energetic activities, and I had a really, really wonderful moment this morning, and with getting something arranged for something to work on. And that's always nice when stuff like that comes through for jobs. And then I got to watch a really cool live stream with Dee Dee. I'll try to make sure to put her links in the comments below afterwards. You should go and check out her YouTube channel. She was really sweet, and she was talking about some of the stuff we're doing here, which was really nice of her. And all kinds of cool cats and kittens came and subscribed in here and took a gander at some of the chaos that we're up to in this place. And that was kind of nice. And then on top of that, it's productive day. You know, when you have productive day where you just, did I really finish that? You know, and I am working on my third and fourth page right now in the day, which is, I'm going to admit, crazy unusual. You know, like it's not often somebody works on 3-4 completed pages, but that's the benefit of working in a non-conforming way. So as opposed to, other approaches, my approach tends to be a little bit chaotic and crazy. So there's nothing wrong with that. Let's go over what we've been doing. Today is, checking the calendar, Wednesday. And with me as always is Corbin. You gonna say hi? Nope, just an accusatory look. So this is the page that we did yesterday. It was, the idea behind it was from my father-in-law. And his idea was, if you're looking for a page to do, you should do that balloon. The Chinese spy balloon, because I don't watch the news, and that is really frustrating for people. So when he said the balloon, I went, what balloon? And so the idea of this large Chinese weather balloon or spy balloon or whatever it is, I don't know, flying over top of North America. They keep saying flying over the U.S., but I'm pretty sure it covered Canada too. They shot it out of the sky. So there's two perspectives I could have taken with this page. I could have done it in a political way and taken one side or another about whether or not it was one thing or another. It wasn't of interest to me. Some of the language that I've used in that does not have captions around it on this page is just reportage. It's just establishing some of the facts that have been reported on a bunch of different news industries and little catchphrases that they're using. The first day it happens, and then we lead right up to the end. I didn't put the date down for the end because at that point, we've already established a point in time. You don't need to establish a secondary one. So it says the suspected spy balloon's week-long path. So that tells us from this point forward is the week-long period. So the date in the front corner, week-long path establishes that it took a week. So that's what's in those pieces of text. And in the opposite pieces of text that are actually captioned with the colored boxes, that is from a song. And so that's my sneaky on the side is letting people try to figure out what the song is. It's pretty obvious what the song is, but once you realize that's my little tongue-in-cheek joke through the page of it's a page about a weather potential spy balloon. Gotta have fun somehow, folks. Corbin's still climbing on me. Anyways, so with annoying me in the studio as always is Corbin. So this, I finally sat down and colored in ink the page that I did on Monday. This is Sam the Private Eye, part 4. The first 3 parts were in, just a second, I've got Corbin off. I've got a copy here. This is the book that I did. 1 second, switching the old camera. This is the book that I did, that I put out last year. This is One Page Comic Extravaganza. And these are all one-page comics that I did in an upright format, in the portrait format it's called, as opposed to the landscape format that I'm working in right now. And these are all kinds of different pages in different formats and different media. Like as the cookie rumbles, this has got masking tape, Post-its, etc., inks. The Frankenstein Monster Goes to Kindergarten is drawn traditional black and white, and then colored digitally. Pandemic Anxiety is actually drawn white on black cardstock. Again, another digitally colored page. This is one of the Sam the Private Eyes. This is the first one. These are drawn with dipping pens, dipping into the jars of ink with the nibs, and drawing it traditionally, and then doing ink wash for the colors in the background. So there's 3 of those in this book, and then there's all kinds of other bits and baubles. Like this is a whole bunch of mixed media for the Society of Vultures page. You got to have fun and try different things in different ways and see what that gets you. There's another mixed media there. There's a 2-page spread page. Digital. There's another Sam. Here is a ballpoint. This is drawn on blue paper, so it's drawn in the white and black. That's a red ballpoint pen. Some more traditional, or some more digital. This is a mixed media painted page with heavy amounts of text for the dialogue. It's little bits of everything, right? And so there's another dipping pen page. So that's what one page amounted to be, is there's 52 pages in this sucker of trying little bits of everything. And so we're doing the same thing now. And so this is why when somebody suggests a one-page comic idea, I'll do it. And I'll try to get it done for the next day. So that's what, I'm going to snap that off again. What do we do? Wrong camera. There we go. So this is what we're back to here. So this is some of the digital stuff we're doing right now. Oh, we got people in. Hi, everybody. Hey, Jim. Hey, Barbara. Hi there. Found you at Deej this morning. A fellow Canadian. Oh, no. Welcome to the show. So this is our Monday page now colored up. And thank you to Jim, who's actually here right now, for modeling for one of the characters in it, as well as Paul Pate. And then the 2 MIBs down at the bottom are from Gary Hodges' DVSM 1975 book. So thanks for that. So that's that. That's yesterday's page, which is very different material-wise. This is a drawn and dipping pen, and then and colored in inks. So that's actual brushed on ink. Whereas this guy is pencil crayon, some watercolor on some heavy grade blue cardstock. And in the instance of like down here where I've got Biden drawn, that's on a white piece of heavy grade cardstock. And then I've tried to match somewhat those blues for the background to unify that image into the others. The reason that I've used the red coloring for behind the Chinese leader is that to differentiate the two. So, oh my goodness, I've missed a whole bunch of stuff. Hi, Aditi. Welcome aboard. You saying hi to everybody? Right on. Yeah, thank you very much this morning, Didi. It was overwhelming. That was what a blessing that was. You're telling everybody about my thingamajig here. I appreciate that immensely. The format that I usually run by here is this. It's on the screen now. If you have a one-page comic idea that you can put in 1 or 2 sentences, something like the Frankenstein Monster Goes to Kindergarten, or in this case, yesterday's page, which is on the screen now, is that balloon, the Chinese spy balloon. That came from my 86-year-old father-in-law. And so whatever these notions are, these simple ideas, these simple presentations, is that it's up to, I now have to figure out how to structure that together as a page to present it this time tomorrow. And so it's been working. It's been a lot of fun. This is number 28 since the start of the year. So it's, we're doing them pretty consistently at this point. Today's is in the future. Well, let me show it to you. I'll put the overhead back on. Today's is in the future, man lands on Mars and establishes the first intergalactic coffee shop. So this was suggested yesterday. Just to give one more example, let me open up something here. I'm going to show you the panel, or the page, I'm sorry, that I did the one day previous to that, because this is, again, trying to take a turn of an idea and using different approaches in order to do it. Because I can't just work in one simple way. So 2 days ago, the idea that you can see written at the top of this page was the demonic roommate, like an actual demon such as Beelzebub or Lucifer, was the idea that was suggested to me, which is, great. But theoretically, you would think that that would mean I have to draw an actual demon. Well, I didn't want to. So what I did instead was play on that convention and look at it from the perspective of, how you'll hear these generalizations, or you hear these stories told by people about how their roommate is a monster. The roommate is a demon. The roommate is, I'm living with the devil, And so you'll hear these little tales, and they're always this sort of standard thing about weird things in the apartment, making random noise. Nobody does the dishes. The laundry's always piling up, and the water, the plants, my pets, aren't taken care of. All those sort of things. And so I put all of that into this page. That's the structure of the page. But the person's describing their roommate, who's a rather inconsiderate person, as the devil. So rather than drawing a devil, I turn it on its side. Just like rather than drawing, a specific take on what it means about this Chinese weather balloon or whatever, spy balloon, whatever it is, that in this situation that's presented itself in North America here, I sang a Sammy Davis song, as well as giving, here's a key point material in the events of what happened. But I prefer to do up and away. So for me, any of the ideas that I get, I'm always going to do my hot take on it. And that's what gives me the juice to really attack these things in my own way. The structural idea is one thing, but the execution and having that liberty to just freeform it out is a completely different thing. This channel, Americans and Canadians coming together, living in peace, blowing up balloons. Yeah. My roommate thinks our house is haunted, but I've been living here for 234 years. Well, and I haven't noticed anything. 234 years. That's got to be a nice house. A nice one of those houses with like the 3 feet walls, built of stone. We got a lot of those in Canada here. Yeah, I can understand that. Somebody's always going to have, they're going to hear the bumps in the night, or they're going to have their own superstition that they're going to come into a situation with. That's again, one of those fun things that you can explore when somebody says the house is haunted. Well, you've got two choices. If you want to write or illustrate a story about the house is haunted, you can do it from ghost story, ghost here, ghost there, or you can do it from the implication of there could be something off, but maybe not. Maybe it's from the perspective of the person that considers there's something off. They're not used to the little adjustments in a house as houses settle and stuff like that. They don't know that the third step up creaks when you walk on it on the left side. But if you walk on the right side, it doesn't make any sound at all. But when I walk on that left side, it's almost like the house groans. Okay, so it's perspective, right? But an idea like you've been there for so many years, but your roommate makes all these complaints of an esoteric nature. What's Paul saying? Paul says, I see dead people. Well, there you go, Paul. I see people that need a coffee. Yeah, it's all relative anyways. So today's idea is in the future, man lands on Mars and establishes the first intergalactic coffee shop. So before I get into this, and I'm going to get into it in a hot, fast minute, up on the screen here, up above my old noggin, I've got just a random illustration that, I'm always doing as I'm sitting here watching a television program or something like that. And so this is, what is this? If it goes stops talking to you, is that still considered being ghosted? I don't know. Ideas like that haunt me. Yeah. I don't know, Jim. That's a good question. Yeah. So, Giddy was mentioning about some of the crazy weirdness that I got up to with mixed media. So the image that's up on the screen now, I stuck that up there. There's some things that you can notice in it, like little bits of trailing, little dash marks you'll see up along the one side. So I got the actual original here in my hand. And so this is one of the weird things that I get up to when I'm doing stuff. I use Post-its, I use papers, and I'm going to do some of that in building up the surface today to work on. But I'll sew things together too. Like I can't make any sense of the wherefore and why of how I go about doing things, other than to say, for the longest time for me, the idea of a blank piece of paper was daunting. And I think it comes from growing up impoverished. And impoverished in the Western world, I realize, is completely different than impoverished in other parts of the planet. But growing up in a really poor, low-income community here in London, and London's a fairly affluent city, so you get to know a lot of rich kids, and you just can't keep up with the Joneses. There's no point in trying that. And so when I would get paper, and it was largely typewriter paper as a young person, for me, that was something to work and to use and to utilize. And there was a part of me that didn't want to wreck it, because look at this beautiful clean paper I've got to use right now, as opposed to these scraps of whatever I find and would put together. So that's where a lot of this taping things together and stitching things together and really making everything last came from, I think, initially. That's my thinking. That's as best as I think I could possibly explain it. And then the rest of it is free-form thinking, and don't come into anything with a preconceived notion other than I'm going to explore and experiment and follow a foundational approach. I've got these learned skills and learnability for crafting an image and things like that. But when it comes to stitching that together, but it comes to putting things together in a structural way as a story, well, that's where your intuition kicks in more and more and more. And so that's kind of the initial conceit for me. Anyways, I've missed some things. So let me catch up, and then we'll get rocking. Oh, thank you very much, Didi. It's very nice of you. Barbara, Ghostbusters. There you go. We were poor, but we really didn't know it because we had no social media to tell us. Is that all it took? Yeah. All right, gang. Back to the mines for me. Have a great day, Paul. Thanks for stopping in. Okay, so today, I've got a whole bunch of random what now, what nots, different papers, different thicknesses, and different little bits of bobs that I'll do to pages. Which, do you want this? Hold this closer. This is this is the image. I try to cut it in a simplistic line, just break it down into the basic shadow of this along the structure of the face. A really high contrasted shadow. And I find that when you look at facial structure, because I have this weird tendency to draw kind of like a typewriter around the page, as opposed to laying in structure and then drawing that way, in my head, it's, again, I can't make sense of this either. There's something about, I see form or I see shape before I see line. And so when you come at the structure of a face from in the sense of a high contrast image, and then bring the details into it, it helps you it helps me anyways to define the face more. So I find it easier to draw really simplistic things like this with just the shadows, just the tones, just the high contrast image. So, and then there you can see the stitching on the back in case that didn't come across before. The stitching isn't even holding paper together. It's just stitching in the paper. Again, I don't know. So that's acrylic ink wash spatter. That's ballpoint pen in the center. Yep. Little bits. Reminds me of the wood signs by the beach. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's kind of fun. I like that. And thank you very much. Hey, everybody. Who's this guy? Welcome aboard, Gary. Okay, so as per the usual, I've got odds and sods kicking around. Oh, I forgot this. I'm sorry. This is the last part I was supposed to do. This is the original pages that make up the panels of the story that I posted for today. So this is the way I'll draw stuff together in different media, and there's ink and acrylic, like there's ink, and then there's acrylic, and then there's little bits of everything. Pencil crayon, straight on pencil crayon on the white cardstock, and watercolor wash in there. But just plain, just because, just throwing, spattering down. There's some stamping in there. I use leaves to make the clouds. You know, so I don't have many stamps. As far as stencils go, I was looking into this because the Dee was showing some stencils this morning, which I'm going to be looking into tonight. But as far as stencils go, the only type I really have is stencils for, your ovals, your circles, etc. And I've got plenty of stamp pads, and I've got a number of different abstract stamp shapes. Well, they're not abstract; they're supposed to be actual things, but I use them abstractly. Like these are random stamps that I've smacked down on this page, drawn this female character over top of it, and then when it came to being put into the page, I cut out the area around the character, so that the character looks like they're just sitting there embossed over top of the image as their own layer. You don't see all of the additional stamp patternness around the character. It just becomes an ornate pattern in the clothing. I love stuff like that. I've loved stuff like that for a long time. When I was a young guy and I'd see in school, some painters would paint, and this starts around the 1900s, I think, where they would basically use wallpaper patterns or dress patterns, but in a flat way, laid down flat over top of. This is as we started experimenting in our art as opposed to being actual representative art. When we started experimenting with abstracts in form, that's when you'd see that. They'd paint flat, almost wallpaper-like screens to represent the pattern of the dress. And of course, they delineate the lines and stuff like that, almost cartoonish. And there's guys that did things like that. Like you'll see Modigliani did some of that. So, okay, tape on paper because, it's just for guys. It's because it's fun. Because all the kids are doing it. It's very hip. Okay, white or yellow, folks. Somebody, if anybody wants, if anybody has a preference of the page color, let me know. White or yellow. I'm not going to do another green one. I'm going to pass on the green. Just because I've done a number of green pages lately. I don't know what it is. The other thing to show for those that are joining us is I walked through with a number of different marker making material. And let's just say, wait, you were in high school in the 1900s? As far as my kids and my grandkids are concerned, yes, I was. But I keep joking that I'm only 39. It's a Jack Finney joke. It's getting harder to do because my oldest is 31. So, okay, this is drawing the same image with all kinds of different mark making combinations and media that I can think of as I'm going. So it's ink, crayon, watercolor, pencil, graphite stick, pencil crayon. There's ballpoint. There's fountain pen. There's dipping pen. There's white paint on black. There's white pen on black. All these different combinations I'm thinking of, and so I started illustrating that recently. I'm sorry. That's good. I like that a lot. I like that. Own that. That's good. So I started exploring this a little further live on the channel here, and you'll see it an X amount of videos ago. But I started walking through and showing more examples of how we can incorporate stamping and things like that. And I did this largely, this just as a black and white exercise. The reason I say that it's in blue is because I painted some of the eyes over blue tape. So blue masking tape there. That is black electrical tape. But because it's black electrical tape and because of something in the tape itself, you start to get a blue base value inside your image and coming out. Gary's stealing that. Gary's stealing that, Barbara. Stealing it. So I started pursuing that farther using some soft marking making materials like Contes, chalks, pastels, the like, and some stamping, some different approaches to putting images down further, using the pattern from stamping and pulling images out of it, that sort of jazz. And then I kept going with more modulation of the surface. So I'm going to keep doing these sort of things because I think it's helping people out. I think maybe at some point I should, I'm going to scan these and put them up on Patreon, I think. All right. Did anybody have a preference for yellow or white base? Because I'm easy like Sunday morning. If you are, let me know. Otherwise, chaos will ensue. Chaos. All right, so I'm just tearing down some paper. This is some random little pieces of paper. So the last book that I did for a publisher out of Brantford, Ontario, which is a town nearby here, city nearby here, I think it's like 35,000. Canada has, London is the 10th or 11th largest city in Canada, and we've got 425,000 people. So Canada is not as populated as the United States. Canada has roughly the same population as the state of California. So, and yet we're the second largest country on Earth. That is until we eventually, and I believe we eventually will become part of the United States. At least half of the country will. So this is just tearing down some of these random sheets that I got between the books. The last book I did that came out, I've done a number of other books that, what do we got? 2 votes for yellow. Yellow it is. There it is. Excuse me. This is the last book I did for the publisher out of Brantford. The last one has come out anyways. There's a number of other books to come out still. But this is a Sasquatch book. So, yeah, this was lots and lots of fun. So, but every time when I got these bundles of books from the publisher, they all had these comic-sized sheets of paper, thin bond paper in them. So, yeah, let's not make those go to waste, huh? All right, white paper, get out of here. So I've got some different stuff. Now I've got a matte gel medium here, and I've got keep my water way over there, and I keep my coffee over here because I have a lifetime of drinking paint. This was one of the things that came up this morning during Dee Dee's stream, is that I've drank so much paint that I can't even tell you at this point. Okay, so there's no rhyme or reason to, again, this is another one of those things that because of Chris's hangups, you gotta know thyself. I hate working on a flat colored surface, and so because of that, that's where the experimentation started. That and when you start studying people, that went to the American school, the Hoffman School, that are all being taught to experiment and modify surface, and you got people that are doing different things like, let me think. Well, I can't remember any names right now, but what's his name? A New York artist. He painted a goat and put it in a gallery. What do we got? I live in Manitoba, Canada. People come here in the winter for the culture and just don't leave, but that's because their feet are frozen to the ground. Indeedly do. Indeedly do. I heard that joke. A friend of mine, their son went to Calgary to go to school, and never left. And they're pretty much sure that he got stuck licking a pole in the schoolyard. Why would your kid do that? What are you talking about? Just funny. I think he was licking one of them poles out in the schoolyard and he got stuck there. All right. So I'm just laying down some of this gel medium underneath the post it because it's not entirely covered with adhesive. As we know, Post-its only have that little bit of adhesion at the top of them. And then I'll make it nice and smushy, nice and flat to the page. And then I'll touch up corners and stuff like that. But I don't want to put all kinds of medium on top. And the reason that I don't is that it may well interfere with the different media that I'm using to make marks on top. And because I don't come in with a kind of a preconceived idea of what material I'm going to use. You know, I like to keep it open, like to keep it loosey-goosey. I've made a proper mess of that area there. You spelled it wrong. I think it doesn't have an A at the start of it. In the greatest country in the United States. Yeah, I had one person. Now, I've only really been on YouTube for, I think, this year. I've had a YouTube account for X amount of time, but I've only really been doing YouTube stuff since the 2021. And because I stopped, I was working at managing this store for 21 years, and then I had a DKA, and I went blind overnight, and with type 1 diabetes out of the blue, because I had a seizure that shut off my pancreas. And so that's it. My wife said to me, "You're retired." So my vision came back pretty quickly, but I still stayed retired. You know, kids are grown up, house is paid. Trying to really go for the thing that I should have probably been going for a while, and that's doing what I'm doing. I've always done my art on the side because family always came first, and now that the family is all older, I can do a little bit more of this. And yet, I've got the grandkids with me, well, some of the grandkids with me every weekend and stuff like that still, because, you know, family's family. You gotta love it. I love it. You know, even if you've got extended family and other, you know, you've got pets, you got other friends that are always ongoing concerns. I tend to find those things happen before for me than the work, but that might be kooky. Anyhow, so there's no reason to this. There's no, I'm going to put a panel here, so I better put that piece there. I'm just schmutzing things down, and that's it, right? Oh, that's very nice of you, Jim. I appreciate that. Yeah, type 1 diabetes just means that the difference between type 1 and type 2 is I can't get type 1 to go away. It's I got to take 4 needles a day to process my food. That's all. And try not to overdo it and try not to underdo it. So, but I don't get to drink. Well, I never really drank much before anyway, so. All right, so just throwing down some stuff and really monkeying up the flat surface of it. So I tend to have piles of stuff that I have to regularly. Gary lives in Arizona. I desperately hope that you would call all the places in America with America somehow incorporated in the name. I think Dee Dee is in Maryland. Is that what it would be? I think I heard you talking about Atlanta earlier today. So this is one way of doing it. You can use glue. So my thought was this morning. Now I got up at 4:30 this morning. Don't ask why. I don't know why. Bad dreams about balloons. But I was up so early this morning. I had put a post out about today's stream by 8 a.m. And the idea of today's stream was how, you know, you can still do. Schmutzing is an artist term. Schmutzing is a real thing. You know, put some schmutz on that, and this here's the thingamabob, and I'm going to go over here with the squooshing. Yeah, I'm going to say all kinds of ridiculous things, folks. So anyways, my idea for today is that because of growing up the way I did, and because of coming from a place of low accommodation. And then, of course, because I married young, I was married and then a dad at 20. So I tended to do everything on a budget for the longest time. And so because of that, I tend to look at whatever materials I find as viable. And so my plan for today's topic was that as of that time in the morning. And then I watched Dee Dee's show, and here's Dee Dee going through all the pencil crayons that she's got in her studio, which I can't say anything about because I'm the same way. Because that was me then. Now I'm the same way, where it's almost like I don't know that it's an unhealthy addiction, but there's definitely a part of me that has a hard time walking away from a sale of any kind of random art supply, whether it's even something as mundane as I don't know, Post-its. It doesn't matter, right? But there's a sort of there's this sort of necessity inside you when you had a point where you didn't have, and then you have a point where you're able to, that you tend to just gather stuff up. So you never know when you're going to use them, especially if you're a person that works mixed media, especially if you're a person that's is unconventional in your approach and how you're putting stuff together. So yeah, I tend to do that a lot. So, but I don't want in any way, shape, or form this topic, this idea. Please don't think for in any level that that it's related at all to your stream this morning, Dee Dee, because I completely get having X amount of pencil crayons. I actually organized my pencil crayons a little differently today and switched out one brand of pencil crayons for another one. So I'm in the same place. And then there's that wonderful thing that I find, that certain kinds of pencil crayons, you don't know that when you buy them, they're all going to come to you broken. And I recently had a set of pencil crayons that I picked up that are just junk. They're just junk. Every ding-dong pencil in the box is broken. And I'm not the guy who goes back to the art supply store or any store that I bought something at ever and says, give me my money back. I'm the guy that goes, well, I'll see if I can make it work. So who knows? Maybe I'll just hold on to them and use them as sticks for some sort of Polakian painting at some point. We'll see. All right, so this is enough mess. I've got enough stuff stuck down here. I thought, so in the studio beside me, I've got a cabinet of drawers directly right here beside me that has a couple of different containers, including a little mini easel that is a travel box of drawing stuff. Hey, Philip, welcome aboard, sir. There's Philip. And we're doing your page suggestion today, which is in the future, man lands on Mars and establishes the first intergalactic coffee shop. I think I said Starbucks earlier. So what was I talking about? I don't know. Yeah, so I reorganized myself. I put some stuff together. I pulled out these suckers, as well as some other mark making thingamajigs, whatchamabobs, bibbity bobbity boo. And so that's what I'm drawing. Now, the idea behind in my head is, so if I told you I'd do it tomorrow. Yeah. I love the suggestions coming in. And as much as I try to have a queue of the suggestions as people give them to me, and I do try that, if there's something that comes up, I'll go, hey, let's go. And you've been thinking about your suggestion for a while, Philip. So that, in some kind of weird way, justifies you moving up in the queue. Sounds good? Sounds good. All right. So the idea being, in the future, man lands on Mars and establishes his first intergalactic coffee shop. Now, there's a couple of ways that I can approach this. If I look at it in the sense of, Well, we're going to establish identifiably first Mars, right? And I did the 6-page comic with my grandkids a few weekends ago, where suddenly the 2 oldest grandkids were here because they had a PA day, and one of my youngest, who still lives at home, let my oldest in the front door and the kids were already here and she's ready to go. So I was babysitting that day. And so we decided to do a comic together. And our 1-page comic became 6 pages long. And you can find that posted on Instagram and the video of us actually doing it here in the studio. And their freeform creativity of kids is so unencumbered that it's an absolute gift to watch. Because kids, they have no necessity for rhyme or reason of why something happens followed up by something else. It just does. And that approach to storytelling, and then trying to sit down postscript and structure that into a narrative, it's incredibly accommodating. So rather than coming at it from Mars first for our page, I thought that what would be a fun take on this, okay, and I always do this at the beginning for those that are just joining us today, is that I'll lay down the structure of what I think an idea is. So this is the idea for the page that I did yesterday that I posted earlier. So the idea here is that in the future, man lands on Mars and establishes the first intergalactic coffee shop. I think that the intergalactic coffee shop, more specifically, coffee shop, is the focus of this piece. And then, so we'll start at the end of the text, and we'll work our way backwards or forwards. Nice. Yeah, that's how it should be. I've got my wife and I have 5 kids, and none of my kids are in art. Like they all have similar interests in some way, shape, or form. One of my kids is a builder. One of my kids is a electrician. I've got my oldest does all kinds of crafts with her kids, and then my one son is related to the comic store industry that I've been part of for years, but he does the gaming, the tabletop stuff, and then my other daughter is in administration. So there's all related things to how my wife and I have been employed for years, but nobody's just crazy like Dad. So, but the grandkids, huh? I got a shot with those ones. So, yeah. So the 2 oldest are always wanting to be in the studio. Barbara says, I was an early childhood educator for 40 years. Those ankle biters are incredible storytellers. Ankle biters. You're telling me. Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Let them go. There's nothing better than a stack of typewriter paper and an inexpensive amount of crayon or markers or pencils, and just let the kid go. Because if that kid has the facility for wanting to tell a story that way, buckle up, you're going to get one. And then it's just expounding on that if that truly is an interest for them. My son Joshua, who's now in construction, would take shapes, modulated shapes in little foam pieces, and when he build huge mandalic patterns and stuff like that, that's the first inkling I had that kid wants to build and to design. And I was a carpenter. So, all right. So in the future, man lands on Mars and establishes the first intergalactic coffee shop. So let's start with coffee shop, and then we'll play on the fact of where the coffee shop is, and then we'll pull back one more time and play on where the coffee shop is. So, and especially in this day and age of exploration and establishing environments, this is something that could be, a swing take on that, right? What's Chip says, kids are also great at making iPhones. Too much, too soon? No, that's shoes. They're good for mining. There's all kinds of anyways, shirts. Yeah. So my thought is that I'm going to play with the idea of rather than, because I've been having title pages, and I realized with the first 1-page book, having a lack of title paging, because I thought the differentiation of one page from the next would be enough for people to realize it's not one story. I realized that that's not the case. I need more distinctive separation of one page from the next one. So I've been doing a lot of titling on the pages of late. This one, I'm going to start a different way. So I'm just going to start by drawing some different aspects of a coffee shop and bring us into view and play around the environment itself. I used to cover up the printed word in books and have the children create their own text, and I would also cover the illustrations and have the children create their own illustrations. That's genius. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fantastic. That's a wonderful way to go about it, to approach it. I taught the kids to read through comics, surprise. And what I would do is I just ask them, you read to me. Like as soon as we reached a certain point of me reading everything, it was time for them to start. Let's start, structuring it so that they can get some of these words out of here. And those early days before they were actually learning to read, the stories that you got from them just looking at those pictures. I can remember a couple of instances where the stories that I got had absolutely nothing to do with the pictures at all. My one son specifically, he just went on the fly and just had a field day. Just had a field day telling me something that made absolutely no sense whatsoever to what we were looking at. So, and that's fun, right? That's the kind of fun that identifiably sort of tells us that their imagination's kicking. Yeah, like Dee Dee says, they've probably developed really good imaginations. And good for you, Barbara, for enabling that facilitation of that for those kids. That means an awful lot for them, and they might not necessarily know it now. I've been going into classrooms here in London for about 15 years now, and I've taught in a number of different institutions here in the city, but in grades from 3 up until the business university that we have in London, and teaching accounting and business students storytelling, and finding that inner creativity is what the actual workshop was with those kids. And it's amazing. The group that was the most repressed, the group that was the least in their mindset able to engage in exploring any dialogue that might exist in their own head, it's the business college, the business university kids. It's but honestly, it's not in their headspace to be. Their headspace is very much clearly towards maths and business and the like, and so you gotta have some modicum of understanding for that. All right, so rough panel 1. I'm drawing the environment itself. This is a Faber-Castell. These are brush tip markers. And there's a really soft brush to these. If anybody's had an opportunity to use them, they have a nice bend to it. So when it comes to just allowing, a nice clean movement of your hand without pressure. Oh, you're welcome, Barbara. You're welcome very much so. It's great. It's great that when educators are doing that and engaging those kids like that. Anyhow, the Faber-Castell is it's a nice surface tip to it that I really enjoy. It has a soft weft to it that allows you to push and pull away from that, so that you can get thin into thick and back out again to thin. And they're relatively inexpensive, so you can find them Canadian dollars, $10 for a set of six, a little packet of 6 random colors, and they also have them in. So this is some of the different tones, and there's a lot of repetition in these colors. But then they've also got various black, gray, white. Okay, so if you're able to take a look, they sell them at Chapters Indigo, and if you have Chapters Indigo there, I don't know, but if you do, take a look there. If you don't, there's probably something that is like there. So I'm just playing in the environment a little bit here and rooting the scene and just doing little things that might not at first make some sense. Sorry. So before I move on to the next panel, it's not just funny colored money, huh? It's also metal. It's also little pieces of bits and bobs. We got the loonie, huh? That's $1. We don't have dollar bills. We have the toonie. That's a $2. We don't have $2 bills. We have the goonie, huh? No, we don't have that. But Goonies would be good enough for me. Oh, I'm just ashamed of myself for that one. Is that going to do? See, the colors for putting down are good, but if you want to do these lighter values, these creams and whites, they're not going to show beans on here. That's okay. So I'm going to move forward from there and just keep laying out. So the idea here is I'm doing two things. In the finished image, and I'm just drawing over these modulations that I made in the surface. They don't matter because for me, it's just kicking at the image itself, just kicking at the page. So I just draw right over top of it. It's a weird conceit that I know. There's a painting behind me on the wall, and I don't know that the camera's going to pick this up, but I'll have to do a little walkthrough at some point. But there's little bits and scrapes and things like that I put on the canvas. I do it with everything I work on. I don't make any sense in that regard. So there's bits and scrapes and things that I did with the palette knife and that's underneath this image. And then the image just goes on top. So even doing painting work, I've got 3 foot by 6 foot drawing over on that wall of a image on the French Riviera and a person walking despondently through the street without shoes on and everybody just looking at it as a matter of fact. But it's a white pencil crayon drawing on a blue surface, but that blue surface has all kinds of paper modulations underneath. And I like doing it. That's my Jim Jam, folks. It makes sense in my head. So I have images like this in the background, and I'm pulling notions out of that. So, rather than zooming in and focusing, because I think reference is good, but reference isn't the all that it should be. We can take reference and we can use that for the inspirato that it can give us. Like here's, oh yeah, right, sugar jars on table. But we can also put and think about the structure of shape and form of a flower planter and how some of those fun shapes that we can put into that pot of flowers as it sits behind the sugar shaker. And, you can do a couple little more pieces of fun, put a little salt and pepper in there, the salt and pepper in that sucker. But there's fun things that I like to do. Give me a sec. I'm looking for, what's the page? Okay, so I'm going to put this up for a second, just for an example for something. So in this page here, the image that has the leaves, and like the plant's little bit there in the lower right side, this is, you can see there's different blue lines running across the page. It's a pre-lined piece of paper that I used anyways, put the image flat over top of it. There's a red cardstock page a piece of paper that I used in front of that I drew the fish and white ink on. The laundry is just paint markers that I just made some quick attacks and smudging with my thumb. The teapot and piano is just a brown pencil on random scrabbles of paper there. And then there's the painting of a sink that I started doing with a palette knife. So, and then started pulling out some nicer lines out of it after the fact. So all these different sort of motifs that we use as we're putting together our image, because we're not solidly locked into this is what we have to do. This is what, this is the approach I have to take on this. It allows us to structure this down, but how we go about doing it isn't set in stone right now. And I kind of like that a lot. I like the notion of being allowed to play as I go about a project. There's a lot to be said for that. There's a lot to be said for staying open to the notion, of where it could go. Just got to step away. Hey, thanks for stopping in, buddy. Really nice you coming out. That's very nice of you. Yeah, I like stuff like that. I like the idea of playing with the potential opportunities of you can set something up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a pre-existing way that you're going to go about it. Like as I lay this in roughly a marker, it doesn't mean I'm going to stay with marker for the whole image. So, but what it does mean is that in the interim, I'm not even being precious about the lines. I'm just throwing lines down in a rough way. If I want to clean those up and over, I can do that and edit them in and out with paint and surface or layering of surface. I always say for people that are that might tune in, a good fine example for you to look up would be Baron Story. Baron Story is a person who would have 16, 18 layers on a drawing of he would do the drawing, he would put a resist over it or seal it in some sort of way, whether it's a fixative or if it's a coat of liquid material. And then he'd go over that surface with a white or a flat tone, just a flat screen of value over top of his drawing. And then he would go and scrape some of that away and bring the color back up that's underneath that. And while it sounds kind of remedial and a little bit obsessive, the different opportunities that he would find in that would give a completely different sense of image to the stuff that he was creating as opposed to his contemporaries at the time. So, it's that's the fun stuff is looking for things like that. And he taught at school. I think he taught at Pratt School. I think he taught at the California School of Art. He taught at a number of places over time. And, that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun, right? So that's the sort of stuff that I look at and think, yeah, there's somebody who's going for it. A really fine book to read if you're interested in mixed media material is a book by Neil Gaiman. It's Neil Gaiman's first book that he did with Dave McKeon. Neil Gaiman will go on to write the Sandman series and then eventually get fully into novels and doing American Gods and the like. But one of his first things was a story called Violent Cases with Dave McKeon. And Dave McKeon eventually goes on to do all the covers for the Sandman books that came out from DC and then eventually trades and eventually, he's the creator of Coraline. So there's a great deal of approach that these guys took in storytelling. There's a nice fusion between the text and the image, but the different things that McKeon would try by going into surface and really exploring and playing with the way he's telling dialogue visually. I used to think of my father as the giant that I would read in fairy tales, fee-fi foaming through the countryside, looking for the smell of Englishmen, is the text. But the image is a little boy lying on a carpet pattern in a void white space. That's the first panel. And in the second panel is a little boy looking up, and there's a tighter focus frame so that we get this claustrophobic sense of what's up above us. And then that third frame is a perspective from below of his dad with the cigarette watching television. And yet his dad does resemble the giant. And so what you can do textually is one thing, but what you can add to that visually changes the entire dynamic of it. And it lets it be something far more than it may have just been with just the words. So take a look at Violent Cases by Dave McKeon and Neil Gaiman. And if you don't have that, and if you're not able to find a copy, which is sacrilege, I can show you one of mine. I'm a weirdo. I have 6 copies of that book. I'm not saying it to be braggadocious. I'm saying it that it's just my favorite book. So I have a number of copies of it, the different printings that have come out over time, because it's a book that I lend freely. And I had an expectation at a certain point in time that the things I'm lending, because they stopped coming back, and I lost some pretty nice books that way. And yet there's still people that don't have the affordance of being able to come across these materials, and good materials should be shared. Good literature should be shared. Good imagery should be shared. So I would find them on the cheap and store up copies in order to hand out. So I have 6 copies of that book. That's one that people just keep giving back. It's not that they don't like it. It's just I get it back. All right, I'm 3 panels in. And before I just keep running across, so the whole idea is here, I'm doing facets of a coffee shop. Little things. Here's the tables with chairs. And I've got a bit of a space background in the back. So there's the first hint, right? And then I've got focusing in on table and some of the elements that are on top of a table, like the sugar, the salt, the pepper, which is more of a restaurant thing, I realize, but why not? It's a center table dressing. I could have done a napkin dispenser, which would have been more likely in a coffee shop, but there's a plant there. There's couch seating in behind. Alongside, there's a bar, like a window front bar, that people sit up on the higher chairs. And there's a swivel top for it. The crazy ornate lighting from a rooftop. The reason that I did it round is sort of to emulate that 1960s pop futurism that was going on in an awful lot of things. Sid Mead type art, where while Sid Mead is an absolute brilliant designer and artist who designs science fiction elements along a structure of making sure that these things could possibly work. Now, sometimes in stretches of the imagination for the pseudoscience imagineering of whatever the space story is. But, he tries to make sure that there's some degree of availability. What do we got? Jukebox on the tables. Jukebox on a table is a fantastic 1950s idea. I love that. That's a lot of fun. But because I've already shown tables a couple times, why don't I just take a leap and let's just throw the jukebox in a corner. We won't call it baby, though, because nobody puts baby in a corner. These are rules in this world, folks. So I'll just and I'll give it a little bit of shape and form here. So I'll just draw the forward of the jukebox. And my brain I try to think about where did I see a jukebox? What was the basic components of a jukebox? What are the sort of elements that I want to put together with it? Do I have to draw a specific jukebox that was actually manufactured by such and such a company at such and such a... No. Get the needles and guts of what a jukebox was, and then root it into an environment. So I'm going to put a little table with some ephemera on top. Not being overly precious about these lines as I'm roughing everything out, because again, I'm going to come through this now. Sorry if I'm moving off camera all the time. I apologize. I'm trying a different setup today so that you can see a larger space in some of the things that I'm using. I've been working on an angle that's been making the drawings look pitched as I'm doing the videos, and so I'm trying to do it flat for you, which requires me to lean over the drawing. But so I'm trying to think of these elements and then rooting those in the world that we're building here in drawing the pictures in front of us. So, you know, I'm going to put some little bits and bobs here in the foreground. And what this is lights, a panel of lights down at the front of it. So just thinking about different jukeboxes over time. And then we'll put, even though it's a little antiquated, I'm going to put a record system on the interior. And then we'll define that a little bit more as we go. Love that idea, Dee Dee. Wish we had one. We do have one of those soft drink machines where you insert your coin, select a beverage, and run it on a track. That's cool. That's super cool. There's a restaurant in downtown London that I went to as in high school, and it still had the same setup from the 1950s. So each of the tables still had small jukeboxes on there, and you would enter in and pick some of those songs. And when I went there to high school in the 1980s, the songs that were entirely on it were from the 1970s. But when you put your quarter in at the jukebox at the table, and you chose a couple song selections that you would get from your table, it played it on the large jukebox in the corner. And that was just the coolest thing on the planet. My wife and I went to the same restaurant when we were at a function for when our youngest went to the same school that I did. And the restaurant's still there. Same family owns it. She's been running her restaurant for 54 years. And unfortunately, they've only got 2 of the little jukeboxes left, and they're along the counter. But that was such a cool thing, you know. Okay, I'm going to get away from drawing more elements. But if anybody comes up, anybody thinks of any more little fun things for a coffee shop, okay, let me know. So, yeah, I've got some structure here that I put in with this marker. I brought these other markers out in case I wanted to play with that. Now my brain's saying, hey, Chris, you got a pencil? So, you know, I'm just going to run through into the image and start playing with some marks. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to structure the whole thing and that I'm going to completely adhere to the layout that I did. I might, like I'm doing with this table, put some enhancements around that base and have some fun with that, you know. Marks are fun to just throw down. And then you sort of come through and give it a little more structure after the fact. Like the initial marks, the breakdown marks are fun to just throw them down. Just throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks. So that when you come back through and you're doing it in a more structured way, you're pulling out some lines, you're throwing away others, you know. And because I tend to be a person that builds up an image as I go through it when I'm working in a mixed way, when I'm working specifically with pencil crayon or something of the like, and I'm trying to keep it more established and routine, the image that I have here where you see something like, you know, the drawing of Joe Biden, that's just straight on, right? So that's, you know, different approaches at different times. I have to catch up later. Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for coming out. It's really wonderful to have got the chance to meet you today, Barbara, and really cool you come and hang out. All right, so I'm just throwing down in the foreground. I'm not as worried about the background. Other times I will take different colored pencils or different colored markers and pull out different elements with those different values. You know, largely looking at and thinking of things. So what I mean by that is I'll take different mark making tools. And so this is why my initial sketches, my initial pages for books is multiple colors of pencil, even though, you know, it's a flat image that I'm doing. I'll use a different color for edging than I will for the principal color that I'm drawing all the characters in the foreground and the definable lines with. And then I'll put these sort of enhancement lines in a different value around them, just because I don't know, it completes that and separates it in my head for when I take it onto another stage. So I'll do stuff like that, but when I start defining the area in behind, I'll use a different value. You can see a fine example of when I'll use that process in one of yesterday's images in the comic that I did then, because the characters that are in the foreground on the boat have a green outline, and the characters in the background on the boat have a sandy tan color that I drew them together with. So, you know, just playing, just for scuzz. That's why. But it's, you know, just a different headspace, just a different approach. But it's all about play. It's all about just having fun and trying different things and coming at the space and shapes within it and defining as we go. I like working positive and negative, putting down, taking away, you know. Gonna work for me? Hey, you, do your job. Talk about toxic stuff. I have at times stained the color of my hand by testing pens on it. On the top of my hand, I've stained the color of my hands for days while working on things. And if I'm in this sort of really intense period of trying to make sure I got everything finished for an exhibition or something like that, I would have permanent stains on. If I'm doing these, one time I had the permanent stains in my hand for like a week and a half because I was doing these ink images and I'm putting all these washes in. My hand eventually just, you know, took 23 washes to get that blue pallor out of my skin there. And that's sort of stuff is fun, you know. This is a marker pen with a big fat blunt tip on him. We're going to put some bigger lines down in there. Big chunky bits. Work on some reflections. So this is the other part of the fun. When I do these drawings flat on the surface, and so when I go in now, and I'll hold this up, but when I go in now and I start putting in positive and negative lines, and it goes over a surface like the tape, then you'll see this. The wonderful thing that I really enjoy is the value that's in that tape coming up to the surface, coming up in between these spaces of the positive line that I put down with the white. And I'll leave that in there. I'm not going to take that out. I'm going to leave a lot of those yellows and those greens in there as root colors and root values in the image, so that that's part of the fun of how those things peek out and peek through. You know, it's one of the ways to give some degree of characteristic to the page that I'm trying to execute. You know, there's no point in just removing everything all the time. Now, as much as I've laid out panel shapes and like here for the page, I'm going to bleed edge over a lot of panels because I just clean that up, you know, after the fact, and the editing process tonight. So I'll leave those a lot of times. I just let the bleed lines go over and don't be overly precious and concerned about that, because I know I'm going to clean it up in a moment. Some might argue that that's making an extra step for myself, but I'm already doing the editing anyway, so it's not. You know, because what I mean by the editing is that I'll go in and I might do some enhancements, or I might do some effects, like I'll lay over what looks like a zipatone pattern or something like that. Or you know, I'll cut the image down or whatever, fit it to a frame, put an outline on said frame, all kinds of little things to just play, to just have some fun. Got a purple here. Purple is the opposite on the color wheel of orange. And while the page is yellow, it's the application of the orange lines for the drawing of it, and then putting the purpose to that allows me to define a little bit more form. So it just dropped. Oh, it's a pencil. So, you know, playing with that. This is a rather hard pencil crayon. It's a color erase pencil, and I find that oftentimes they'll have a really hard tip to them. And I like that because you can do different things with that hard tip. Okay, I'm going to do this because I know I'm all over the place. I'm going to lock this into place. Try to move around a lot less. Sorry about that. Surprised nobody's yelled at me about it. Stop moving around! Sit in one place! One line! Come on! Woo-hoo! Or however you yell. What's this? What do you do? You do it too dark. Get better. So I'm running through with the gray right now, and I'm starting to pull up some of the form, putting in a little bit of depth to the image, a little gradation here, gray tone. You can see how the different surfaces will apply themselves to the marks that you make in a different way. Whether you've got paint down there before, or ink down there before, or some definable medium, or if it's got just an awkward texture in the paper itself. Yeah, I love stuff like that. Absolutely love it. I see it as an opportunity. So as much as the initial white or the initial orange lines that I put down are pretty good, I'm not holding on to those rigidly. I take them as a guideline and adjust the marks that I put down accordingly. So here's the first hint that I'm going to be changing up the specs of the space because there's no real windows. There's these engraved patterns in a wall. So I'll do this oftentimes is that I'll just complete one panel and move on. But I tend to work fairly fast. So, and I also end up holding 63 things in my hand all the time. Boom, 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 boom. What am I looking for? There you are. What are you doing over there? I don't know. So I'm just putting down a different gray. This gray has a deeper value to it. It has a colder, deeper heat signature in it as it sits in the image, but it works as a good more bold contrast into what I've put down. anybody has any questions or thoughts or anything, let me know. I'll do my best not to be overly sensitive and start crying. I don't know that. I don't know it. So I'm going to cut some sharper lines here with this kid. I missed. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dee Dee. That's very nice of you. So this sits behind this chair. Sits in that foreground. The other thing I would argue with people is that the line that's at the top of this chair here and the line that's at the top of this chair here is not going to match up to the line on the background. Even if they're separated by the smallest degree, if you have the top of this chair end at the same place where this mid-value line is on this wall that has boarded up windows or big metal contraptions slammed over the windows, then your planes are going to disappear. The planes that you have the chairs on and the planes that you have the wall on are going to link together, and then you've lost any sense of dimension that you tried to put in your page. So something to consider, something to watch for. All right, this is fun. And at the end of the day, that's the big thing for me. All right. All right, team. High five. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if anybody else has planned this or not, but I just saw an article today that was advertising the what's it called? Avatar film. And it had the most random sales line. You know, everybody else has gone there. Why haven't you? That's just something that sticks in my head when I'm trying to think about drawing environments and drawing things. I think about stuff like that, like random signs and random collections of bric-a-brac or whatever, that because they've lived in the same place for so long. Okay. So I was just thinking in my thinking and thinking. There we go. So yeah, lots of different fun little values and shapes and beebles and baubles. I'm going to push a really light penciling of this purple and push this intermediate space back. Well, I guess it is the backspace. I would argue that maybe the intermediate space is the furnishings and this is the foreground, but I want to push this back. There's an interesting, Alex Toth was an animator that designed a great deal of television shows in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, the Super Friends and, you know, all kinds of jazz, right? But he had a really fantastic example of a really fun way and simplistic way that becomes an unconscious act of separating your foreground, your middle ground, and your background by engaging one part of that in color, engaging one part of that in the in between tones, the grays, the muted values, and your background. And just using these three random planes as example, but these aren't lockstep by any means. But if you do a light, let's say a light line art piece in the front, and then a gray definition of furniture in the middle, maybe even a silhouette or a lens flare type thing situation in your drawing so that it diffuses it, and then your background being heavily shadowed, it gives a dramatic intent, right? Caravaggio, Supper at Emmaus, fantastic example of using light as a means to convey something far more. He's the chosen one, the light halos on him, or he's the doubting one. That's why he's emulating a pose that he's going to emulate later on in the Bible when he's, betraying somebody. Like, there's all kinds of little symbolic languages that we can put in things. We look at the world a different way now, that's for sure. I think I would have gone bonkers back in the day, because I probably would have been more precious about something like this than I am nowadays. All right, that's a good foundational thing. I'm going to leave that as it is, and I'm coming in here and start to pull apart this image here. I'm just trying to think of what I drew. Oh, I think that's a model of a boat. And then I've got random item there. There's a swivel chair. And all these little elements that I'm putting into the overall image is stuff that I'm thinking about how these things might be located in such an environment. So is it StreamYard? Chris just blipped. Change your setting back to 720M, guys. What is Didi, you're gonna have to walk me through that if you don't mind at some point. Let me know if you've got insights into that. Maybe it's my connection. Maybe my connection is relatively unprepared for X amount of people being. I think it's done pretty good. We're getting fiber optic in the next week in the house here, so that it's going to be a far more powerful connection for us, even though it's just the two of us, and we don't burden our internet too heavily. I just thought it would be. My wife is actually the one that was behind it, so. I went to 144p. Huh. I have to find out how that happens, or what that is, what that means. Again, I'm still, it's a massive learning curve right now. And clearly Christopher's too patient to learn how to do all this stuff before he just gets into all this stuff. And when the settings blip, is that something that happens externally, or is it something that happens, or is it an internal, is the causality behind that from my basis, or is it just a general functioning problem that faces all of streaming services and their application? So I got that green down in here, but like I said earlier, I'm pulling it out. Not necessarily worried about all of the shapes and defining of things. I'm wanting to define that value a little bit differently. Those blurry, you watchers want to check your settings. We don't ask, we just fix. You're a grace, Didi. You really are. I was so, I've tried to sit down and engage in some of your streams before, but I tend to tune in on the wrong days, and I wasn't getting my notifications, so I fixed that this morning, and there you are, immediately. Diddy's drawn. So I tuned in to watch. I know Chris has this paid version of StreamYard, which does 1080p. The basic is 720. I think I need to learn about this a little bit more and stop being so blissfully unaware maybe about the streaming, the interwebs. I'd actually, because I'll put StreamYard on each day, I actually had to go into my StreamYard program and unload all of the previously recorded videos in StreamYard that weren't letting me post anything more. So when I draw with ballpoint, I tend to draw on the side of the pen. And when you do that, let me think of how I can example this the easiest way. When you draw on an angle like this on the pen, okay, and you're working the pen in such a fashion, you're going to get a dollop of ink that builds up on this side. And so every now and then, I'll turn that out on another piece of paper and get that dollop out there so I don't get smudging and nonsense inside of my image. So if anybody is doing some ballpoint work, and you realize that maybe you're drawing in such a fashion, that's one way to fix that. So make sure I have 1080 set in my StreamYard settings. I will do so. 1080. Made a note. Okay. That is the couch. I didn't know what I had going on in my own image. It's the couch. And then this is a cast shadow. That's the chair in the foreground. Catching on. Yeah, I deleted a whole load of the Thing Dong things, and yeah, and then right away I got back into this. Did the stream 10 minutes late yesterday or the day before. I don't remember what it was. Phil gave me hell for it though. What are you doing? Why weren't you here on time? I was here on time. What are you doing? He yelled at me. He yelled at me. He said, "You." With all that conviction. Yeah, this is a kind of a loosey-goosey mixed silly page. Hold on a second. I'm trying to catch up. Just delete the vids. You're uploading to YouTube, so they don't need to stay there. Yeah, I don't need it. Okay, thank you very much, Didi. That helps me out immensely. I thought I was going crazy. Why isn't this working? Why is this happening to me now? That's what I shouted. Crossed my arms, curled my knees up to my chest. I began to pout. And then Corbin walked over and said, "What are you doing?" He got tired of me not engaging with him, so he's moved over to the chair on the other side of my studio. I'm just going to go sit over here, Dad. Thanks a lot, jerk. So by using a green that is, of course, we've got the green value in the tape areas that we've put down. And by using a green pencil in our images, and as we move through our image with this value being applied in the composition, which is, well, it's not the exact same value, the exact same color, or the same depth of color, like with intensity. It roots it. It ties it together. It does this. It just makes a accommodative sense Oh yeah, there's that green. So you can spread around your image. I like playing with things like that, that's for sure. I don't know what I was doing in the background there. Oh, I know now. As simple as that. I had a purple. There it is. Yeah, I appreciate all these people that I met today, and that started following me too. It was super, super keen. What a super group. I liked it a lot. I like meeting nice people. This is my favorite color. It's an olive green. It's there's a million different names for it. Yes, of course. 16 different companies with the same color and 19 different names for it for some reason, you know. But I tend to just call it olive green. So I'll put my finger down as I put down some material, and I'll diffuse that color with my own finger as I'm working, so that it softens the value itself, but at the same time you can pull some really nice effects out of that. Really, really interesting things can come together out of it. So, and then of course the second thing I can do is that as I'm putting this white down, enhance this table a little bit, I'm going to leave different values around some of the settings and servings as though it's like a natural light, a cast light. So it's one of those subconscious things in a drawing. And then of course it's fun to throw. That's the real benefit of paint markers, is that you can go right over top of whatever else. Orange, that's what I'm looking for. What time are we at? We're at 1:37. If anybody has any questions or anybody has any one-page comic ideas, let me know. You know, lots of great peeps around, not just my channel, but the comic guys like Gary, Josh, Jim, Scott. Oh, every one of those guys. Every one of those names that you've listed are absolute princes. I really enjoy their work, and I really enjoy them, getting to know them. They're a bunch of great guys, and you're definitely correct on that. I like the idea that I was asked to participate in an anthology that Frank is putting together, and I think that if Philip, if you're here because you were involved in that last night, but Frank and Philip and Adam, a fourth person I'm not familiar with. But I noticed that these guys are putting together an anthology. I had to pass on it. I'm sorry, but I know that limit of structured time, and I'm at it. So, but I'm really excited for these guys, and I'm hoping great things for them. I think they're going to have a lot of fun. They got a lot in front of them for the planning process of it. But yeah. I've got comments I've missed here. I just haven't been paying attention. I was just about to ask you that. Yeah, I'm not going to be part of the anthology book, I don't think. I think there's a lot of variables right now. And as it comes together and things happen, I might be able to participate. But as of right now, I'm done with Kickstarter things. I can't. I've had a couple projects that I've had to go through the Kickstarter channel, and yeah, I'm sorry. I just can't do that process anymore. I'm fed up with that. I didn't have results that in any way, shape, or form left a positive experience for me. So just have to. It's important rather than messing around with the process that you guys are going through to just step back. But yeah, let me know as you guys are going. Check in with me again, Philip. I might be able to help out. So I can't say that I don't know if I'll have time to do a page because I'm running like a lunatic all the time on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So there's no excuses for me because people know I draw fast. So hurry up, Red Smith. Draw us a picture for the monkey book. So this is, again, playing with this laid down value in that green and then pulling it out and bringing it together with the lighter value that exists in the paper by using that white line to follow the lines that were placed down with the initial marker sketches. But because that's disappeared, you draw the opposite. You draw the negative. So, yeah. If I know Vic, he's involved as well. I don't think I'm familiar with Vic. I don't know if I've met Jeff Lafferty. You know. Did you give me a suggestion that follows akin to the parameters of your book? Is that what you did, you sneaky fella? So, there's a root connection, but from one image to the next, and I'll just keep moving along and doing the next image, and then looking back, and sometimes you need to unify some of those images to make sure contextually they're all the same environment and have the same level of tonality. But the walls are purple, the walls are the floor is brown, and if you've got the wrong colors in wrong places, then it separates the illusion of this is one environment, this is one room. So you want to tie those things back together as you go. That's something I would promote. Yeah, I think that my whole point of bringing it up wasn't just to talk about me. Well, I don't know if I'm going to. That's not. Yeah. The whole point I brought it up is that a lot of these really cool cats that I've met, Frank, you, Philip as well, and and more. It's like, look at these guys working on this project together. This interconnectedness that I was witness to today of the individuals on DD stream, and you all have this general aesthetic appreciation of what each other are actually doing. You're fully aware of what the other people that you're engaged in these conversations with have their efforts, their creative efforts, and wow, fantastic! It's absolutely fantastic to meet such a bunch of cool people like that. Gary introduced me to Jim, and really thankful for that. That he's a fantastic fella, Gary, and then Jim's all right. Jim's a fantastic guy too. I really enjoy both their work. If anybody that tunes into this has not had a chance to read Gary's DVSM books, please find Gary, Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots, and get a hold of those. That's something else. There's few things that dialogue flows so naturally in a conversational piece between two characters. It gives us so much in-depth insight into not only the persona of each of those individuals, but a thematic through line of those individuals in the context of the world around them and how they're relating, not just how the world relates them, but how they're relating to what they do and what they have to do in the context of the broader world at large, and most specifically the task they're about to undertake. And all of that is done through, in the initial scene is dialogue in a car. And then it get crazy. They go crazy. That book crazy, man. You got bunnies in it. There's no bunnies. Trampolines. Yeah, I'm really impressed by that book, and I'm looking forward to his next volume. I got hired this morning for a project that I'm really looking forward to. And one of the things is doing some workshops and talking about story structure and talking about, keeping that tight, keeping that editorializing tight now. Yeah, I'll have to call that back. Keeping your editorializing as a focused knife edge, so that when you're looking at in something like a one-page comic, you've got to get the meat and potatoes on that plate, and you can come at them from an angle, you can come at it from a perspective, but you've got a specific amount of information, and so you have to figure out how to do that in some kind of compositionally balanced way in a limited amount of space. And so are you going to do the entire Napoleonic Wars? No, you're not. Not one page like that, unless it's just this limited, here was a major battle, here was a major battle, here was, that's dull. But if you're going to look at your story and look at one facet of, let's say, the Napoleonic War, let's just talk about the suffrage of soldiers on the front line. And you've got a page to do that in. So you've editorialized the broader context down to a smaller one. And then you've got to, place that on a page. You've got to equivocate these ideals in a limited amount of space and get on with it. Next thing. And doing that is something I really have come to enjoy doing. The pressure, the test, the pressure cooker of doing one-page comics forces me to have to be very aggressive and chopping out the waste dialogue, right? So, okay, I'm sorry. Let me catch up. Jeff Lafferty. I know Vicky's involved as well. Jeff is an original art caster. I've yet to see Jeff's work. I'm gonna have to look that up. I better write him. Jeff Lafferty. Is there any relation to Gary Lafferty? Steelers Wheel? Anyway, no. Yeah, I heard him on KBILLY. The book is a sort of space intergalactic theme. Well, that works. Hey, maybe you want the 6-page piece with my grandkids. Dee Dee says we have people from all over the world on my stream. I noticed that a teacher in Mexico and a lady in UK, and I think somebody was there from Africa today. Good for you. I know one of the regular people that follows me is in Lebanon, and I can never understand when this person does come on what time it is where they are. Gary's books are awesome. I'm gonna leave that there. I'm just going to leave it there. Well, okay, hold on. Just walked in. Sorry, take it off for a second. Just walked back to my desk to a nice compliment from Dee Willingham. There you go. Let's put it back up. Bam! Yeah, and I'm excited. I really enjoyed the page that Phil did recently. It was the one-page idea that was put forward about the one that I did with the grandkids, and Phil has done a take on it as well, and I really enjoy it. And it really made me regret something that I'd done on a page where I blamed something on Barry, and Phil in his page blamed something on Gary, and I'm like, oh, I wish I'd said Gary. We could have had all these interconnected but disconnected pieces by different people where this character of Gary keeps messing up all kinds of situations and scenarios. But the page that Phil did is fantastic, and I'm looking forward to seeing lots more from you, sir. That's not saying get to work. That's not what I'm saying. But... all right, well, I'm going to keep plugging on this, but this is the third time I've got a phone call now from somebody I got to talk to. That's my doctor. And I think I better shut us down a little early here. It's at the 2-hour mark. I normally try to stick to an hour and a half and 2 hours, but yeah, I better get this arranged. It's you don't want to get in trouble. Just confirming an appointment, that's all. So yeah, so I'm going to walk through and lay out more of this composition, and the whole notion of the page. In the future, man lands on Mars and establishes the first intergalactic coffee shop. But the whole notion of the page is to break down the elements of coffee shop, and then work into, oh, that's very nice, yeah. And then work into the fact that, no customers, nobody else is there. He's built a rather lovely little coffee shop as the first settler of Mars. And so that's the part that we can add in. We can do so much of that visually. But there's no point in drawing an image in a scene like a person standing there dejected and head down and alone in a large desert area when you can do that with the text and vice versa, right? That's yeah. Thank you, Philip. That's very nice of you. Thanks so much for jumping in today, Dee Dee. It was really, really great to see you, and thank you again for earlier today and for your visit here. And Gary and Philip and I think Jim was in earlier. Everybody that stopped by today. And then I want to make sure I say thank you to everybody. Barbara was here as well. I don't know how far back I have to scan there, but yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for coming on out. I will have this page posted for tomorrow as per usual. And I have pages that I'm going to post the colored version of the page that I did on Monday along with this one for tomorrow so that people can see what it looks like in color, the page that we did earlier this week. And then if anybody's got one-page comic ideas, feel free to put them in the comments after the fact or lay them on me in the chat today, tomorrow. Or if anybody's coming guns blazing with a one-page idea first thing tomorrow, let me know. And please keep creating. There's so much fun that we can all have, and there's so much fun that we can all do. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You can use whatever random items. You can use whatever random materials, and explore that and explore yourself in your processes of making stories and telling stories and having all kinds of fun. So yeah, do so with whatever you got. Start there, and then get on and gather materials over time to push yourself farther and push yourself farther. But in the meantime, keep creating. Okay. I'll see everybody. I'll be on at 2:00 tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye for now.